all, thank you to everyone that's here. I adore you. I adore my family. I adore my friends. I know my committee members, as Dr. Byers, or Professor Byers being there. And then everybody that's online, that's amazing. That's zooming in from all over the United States. I really appreciate your support of me. And last but not least, I was inspired to do this study and this story that I'm going to share because of the girls in my life, because of my nieces. So they really inspired me to be part of this. And then if you kids get bored, just remember the day that your mothers gave birth to you and how long of a day it was for all of us in the hospital. So just hang in there, okay? Okay, so I'm going to start my presentation. I need my reading glasses. Okay. First of all, I just want to introduce the study. It's called Entrepreneurial Spirit in Women of Color. It's a case study on navigating cultural and structural barriers in what I call the conventional entrepreneurial system. So conventional, that could be traditional. So there's so many factors leading to it, actually. And I really, in this study, I want to share it in a way that all three generations here in this room and on Zoom can understand it. So I'm going to simplify some of the terms. So I don't want to lose you guys, and there's going to be a little superhero later on, so that's going to be amazing. But this story takes place here in California, and it's about 5 leading ladies. So there's 5 leading ladies, women of color, each with distinct storylines. So they're all uniquely different. So just imagine, and in the story, there's going to be twists and turns. There's trauma, there's grief, there's just kindness, there's love and compassion, community. Quite riveting, actually. And this room recognizes this film. 2, 3? All of you, please tell me, all of you. Oh my God. Okay, well, I got half the room. So at least half of you have seen this film. Does anybody know the name of it? Hidden Figures. So anybody online, have you seen it? If you haven't, make your figures, just look it up right now. So this is Dorothy, Mary Jackson, and Catherine. And I think I'm doing this presentation and actually kind of an ode to Dr. O, my committee chair, because I took a film and TV class with her, and it was so inspiring and amazing, and how we analyzed all the text, and so that's why I incorporated it into this presentation, because of her. So the reason why I picked this particular scene, this film, is that anyone who's seen it knows that these women they led in a certain way, right? They had barriers, they had challenges, and they raised above it all to really be magnificent, right? Now, this film took place in 1960, 62. My story takes place in 2025, but in a lot of ways, there are a lot of similarities, right? So you'll see. So we're going to look at the background first before we go into the rest of the presentation. So overall, business ownership in the United States, if you can see, it's 58% all male or mixed gender owned. So that means it's men, all men, or men and women mixed. As far as women owned businesses, there's only 42%. It's actually surprisingly, if you think, it's closer, right, than one would think. It's disparity. But what is the problem, right, with this? Well, the problem is there's a funding gap. So who really gets funded, right? So all male founding teams represent 92% of the funding. That's early stage funding. 14.1% are mixed gender founding teams. So men and women. It could be one woman, it could be one man on that team. And women only teams get 2.3%. But if you go into Series C and beyond that, it drops down to 1.8%. And these are, the sources are at the bottom, you can see. I found it from numerous, they're from the most recent 2023 and 2024 statistics. And then even to compound the gap, you can see that 50% of these women-owned businesses, and this is in the United States, are white and European. 21% are Black and American, 18% are Latina and Hispanic, and 9% are Asian American, which also includes Asian Indian. So there's a very staggering difference, right, in the funding. So why is this story needed to be told? For me, I wanted to know why these women kept going. Why were they persevering? Even though they had plenty of obstacles, what really fueled them, and were they building this for somebody? Was they building for themselves or a legacy or a family? Why were they doing this, through all the hardships and triumphs? That was very. And why does this matter to all of us? I can say that with this, we can try to help them in ways that we might not see otherwise. We can see it, the story framed through the lenses of entrepreneurship of women of color. And it really fills that critical gap that we see in underfunding and underrepresentation. Now we're going to get to the research questions. So what are the research questions? They're really the compass of this story and the study. It's really the big things that we're trying to figure out, in this study. The first question is, and I'm going to simplify it, how do the lived experience of these women that are influenced by the intersecting social and structural barriers, like the challenges? And then I digged in deeper with the research question 1.1 and 1.2, which is the cultural background. How does that shape their motivations and decisions? And then what kind of support do they get from their family or communities or those around us? And then what distinct attributes or strategies do they themselves use to draw upon, to overcome these challenges? And then, of course, we're going to talk about existing literature. Who's come before me, right? So I've built this storyline or this study on the shoulders of these three previous authors and literatures. With she proclaims feminist economics is one of the theories that I've used. It's pretty much what it is, feminist and economics. It talks about how parenting and elder care and emotional support should be economic labor. It should be given currency. That's my thought, right? And then intersectionality. What is intersectionality? We're talking about, Crenshaw argued that people with multiple identities, like being a woman, being Black or Asian, and a working class, and those overlapping parts really shape how you experience the world. Not how you see it, but how you experience it, right? And then Duckworth, for her grit theory, she centers grit on your personal drive, passion, and perseverance. And then we're moving on to methodology. So how did I actually do this research, or how did I really build this storyline? This is a qualitative study. That means it's all about narratives and storytelling. It's not really numbers, that's a quantitative, so write the qualitative study, kids. It's through observation, so I went and visited the leading ladies, and I spent the day with them. I had interviews with them. It's bounded, meaning that it's only in California. We use thematic coding. There's a lot of different variables there. That's how I did it. So who are the women behind this story? So we have 5 case study participants. So we have 5 leading women, of which are 4 ethnicities. Their ages are 28 through 58 years old, so really wide gaps. And they have a total of 72 or so employees. They're in 5 different industries, which really compounded this study, right? I've got 5 women with 4 ethnicity and 5 different industries that I had to learn about, right? Or understand. And then of that, 3 of them were solo founders, and 2 of them had co-founders. And total 60 years of business together, right? More experience, but that's just the number of years of business experience. Well, let me introduce you to our very first leading lady. Her name is Karina. And so you all know these stories are like, I guess, biopics. They're real stories, real people, real characters, but their faces and their names are pseudo. So this is Karina, and she's a second generation Taiwanese, Chinese American. She's single and she has no children. She started this nonprofit, which is a 501c3 for her, because she was sexually assaulted when she was in college. And as a result, she decided to reach out to the community, and she found out other people who shared the same struggles, right? And together she started this organization to support Pan-Asian communities. She actually works full-time as a director at a nonprofit, and on top of that, she runs this nonprofit full-time. She does not pull a salary from this. It's all volunteer. Her team is all volunteer. She is a remarkable individual. I'll tell you why. This is one of her quotes. I catch myself thinking, who am I to be a founder? I'm just a girl. But that's not true, right? It's not true. She's not just a girl. Karina has been featured in Times Magazine. She's been featured in Vogue. She's been featured in Glamour Magazine. And she just recently worked with the United Nations with the Global Engagement. So she's not just a girl. She founded an organization that spans the United States. She has a clinical advisory board that supports her causes. She doesn't have the background, and she knows that, but she reaches out to the best and the brightest to help support her. So yeah, she's a brilliant young lady, not just a girl. And then our next leading lady is Quinley. And she decided to open a business after working for a big box retailer who really demanded her hours, set, expecting her to work 7 days a week. She's married, had 3 young children at the time, and she's a 1.5 generation Vietnamese American. And if you don't know what that means, she was born in Vietnam, but she was a toddler when she came over. So that's why she staggers, right? And for her, I wanted to mention, she started her business with the help of her and her husband got a home equity loan. So that's how they started. And she wants to call herself a small business owner. She doesn't relate to the term entrepreneur. She doesn't really relate to the term founder, but she should be, because she created a business that's over 18 years long with patience. And really, the question is like, how good is she in her role? And she looks young. I think you're young because you can be any age you want to be. So, so for Quinley, when I asked her how she identified herself, she said, I'm a small business owner. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not trying to scale or sell, right? To her, the connection as an entrepreneur is selling. I just want my patients to feel seen and cared for, like they matter. And she's talking about insurance. She's talking about reimbursements. Because we know insurance, everyone out there who knows how it is, they really pay about 20 to 25 cents on the dollar. So that's what it is. So, but here she is, supporting communities, underserved communities. She's not trying to get rich, she says. And then next, we have Talia. Talia is a serial entrepreneur, and she's the only one in this study who is in technology. So she's a fintech founder here in the Bay Area, first generation Indian variety American, and she's married and she has 3 boys. She's actually a very remarkable person. She is studying for her executive MBA, and she is running 2 companies. So one that's already generating revenue and for about 10 years, and then now she has the second one, which is the fintech company. So she's struggling quite a bit, and she bootstrapped both companies herself. So for her, this is one of her comments, is women can be the biggest discouragers of other women. So unfortunately for her situation, her struggles, her barriers, and her challenges are really about her family, her in-laws, her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law. It's the expectation of that culture that she's from, that why is she getting an MBA? Why is she starting companies? She should be home. Why is her husband doing the dishes and not her? That's what she keeps hearing. And a lot of times, she said, it's been very painful for her. Because when they say it, they don't really realize the hurt that they, so she's overcome a lot of challenges to get where she is. And then we have Amara. Amara is our florist. She's a floral designer, founder. Again, 1.5 generation Vietnamese American, lives here in the Bay Area. She started in tech actually. She worked for 17 years in sales and marketing for some big companies. And she just decided one day with 2 young children and a husband and parents and a father-in-law that was living with them that she needed to help support and take care of. So she decided that she would go into the floral business. And plus she loves making people happy. She's very carefree. She's just charismatic, just a warm person. For her, one of her quotes was, "My father-in-law was happy I was working from home because he was lonely when she wasn't. His friends came over for karaoke, and I cooked for them. It was good for him while he was developing dementia." And then top of that, we have Gloria. So Gloria is the oldest and our last leading lady. She is 58. She is in the apparel manufacturing industry. She refers to herself as an entrepreneur, a president, and a founder. She's very proud of the fact that she's an entrepreneur. She's a first generation Kenyan American, and she is widowed with 2 children, adult children. So she also started her business bootstrapping, and she was laid off from her company as a technical pattern maker, and because everything was being shipped overseas. And as a result, she needed to start this business so that she could sustain her livelihood. So this is her husband, Jeremy. We're going to call him Jeremy. He was one of the key figures in her life. And she would say to me, he would see me ironing my work clothes in the morning and offer to do it. She was exhausted sometimes, really. And not only that, but he helped build a lot of the things in her structure, her factory, her manufacturing facility, the offices, the chairs, the walls. He was a general contractor. And during halfway through the study with Gloria, Jeremy passed away. Mm-hmm. So he died. And so as a result, it really transformed the story in such a way that you have to be compassionate and caring, understanding, right? And giving her the support she needs. And through all that, Gloria chose to stay. She chose to stay in the study because she felt it was important. Her story was important for me to share. So as a result, I went down and met her. And yeah, he's a remarkable person. The love of her life, she said. So when I asked her, did she take any time off? She said, no, there's work to do, bills to pay, a business to keep running because she has employees who count on her, and customers who are expecting their orders, right? It doesn't stop for Gloria. It keeps going. She didn't take a day off. The only time that she took any time off was when she actually flew her husband's casket to South Carolina, where his mother, who's over 90 years old, could see him for the very last time. That was the only time she took off, and then flew the casket back so we could bury him. And I was there to see it. So that she's a remarkable individual. And she took all of their savings to give him this incredible service that I was fortunate to attend. So that was her priority. Yeah. So through all the data mining and the hundreds of pages of notes, and I came up with 9 core themes, right? So there's 9 core themes, and I'm not going to read them all because I'm going to go ahead and simplify them so that my young audience can understand. Theme number 1, it's really about building with a purpose, whether it's really. Thinking about others before you think about yourself. Theme number 2, emotional labor and balancing. It's about holding it all together, right? It's about the unseen work that we do that we don't get recognized many times. Theme number 3 is silent support system. It's really what it is. They all had her back, like you all have my back in the background. Theme number 4 is race. It's really about race, gender, culture, and all of it at once, right? And when I say culture, it could be every culture. So a European person has a culture, right? A Swedish person has a culture. A Kenyan person. Everybody has different cultures, and that's what I'm distinctly making that aware. And then theme number 5, which is entrepreneurial grit and adaptability. It's really about how do you pivot, right? When things are not going your way. How do you push through and how do you persevere? You yourself and those around you. And theme number 6 is how do you do more with less, really, right? And making the best of things, those economic realities and system constraints. Theme number 7, which is navigating patriarchal racist ecosystems, is really about working around the system. And 8 is really making room, reading the room and playing the role. So these women will change their identity. They'll change their role, whether they're the founder, or whether the CEO, or whether they're the mom, right? Or whether they're a student. And then theme number 6 is the visionary leadership rooted in service, which is uplifting others and giving back. So these were the 9 themes that really resonated and came through in this study. And then on top of that, I'm going to go on here, second point. From those themes, this thematic network diagram, what it is it shows you based on the depth of emotion and based on the commonality, neutrality of these cases, how they actually centered each of these themes. So if you see the ones in the center, those have more value. They have weight. So the blue ones are all the themes, the core themes, and the green ones are all the sub-themes. So as you see, they connect. They're more important because they're all in the center, and the closer they are to each other, there's that more deeper connection. Theme number, like the visionary leadership rooted in service, that was a supporting theme. So it's all the way on the outside, right? But you can see by the connectors, or the lines or the edges, they all somehow interlink with each other. They have value, and they're important. Then we move on to, when I asked them what kind of institutional policy support do they get, these were their answers. It was mixed for Karina, it was misaligned for Gloria. It's out there, but it's not meant for her. Quinley thinks it's limited, but it also could be in her space, right? She's a small business owner in the healthcare business. Amara thinks it's very low, and then Polly, I think it's very insufficient. This is the part for the kids. So, our storyline has the unsupporting, supporting characters, right? This is my niece Felicia's one of her favorite characters, Spider-Man. And we know he's a superhero. We know superheroes can be allies and anchors. And in this plot and storyline, it's the husband, it's the parents, it's the children, and it's the community. And in Gloria's case, it's the church who stepped up after her husband died. And then we have the intragendered villains. Catwoman, right? We have, surprising in the story, we have a lot of women that hold down other women, right? So women who enforce patriarchal norms, that are like the mother-in-laws and the aunts and the peers. I myself have had that with my extended family. So that's, that really resonates. So that's the unsupporting part of it. And then the third is the system. It's a character that nobody cast, but it's there. Right? We have to work around it. It's the shadow. And for me, it's really about the policy blind spots. It's about sexism. It's about that male-dominated funding structure, the boys' club. And it's really about the barriers of bureaucracy. So, yeah. And from the study, and using all the framework that I had explained earlier from intersectionality and grit, and feminist economics, I concluded with my own conceptual model, in that this particular outcome is really a process flow. So we're talking about how the story or narrative interact and progress for these women, right? It's grounded in data and findings, and through the 3 different lenses of the framework. And through the processing of how these women navigate challenges, with the support of family and friends, to redefine what success is for them, right? And then we move on to the core lessons from the study. The core center really emphasizes the main theme, which is built on care and connection and rooted in community. The middle structure, which is the second outer ring, it's about turning pain into purpose, and about grief becomes grit. And Gloria said, I lost my husband, but I didn't lose my purpose, right? Because everything he had built in that company, she wanted to make sure that it was going to maintain, it was going to be alive, it was going to foster. She didn't want to give up on that because it reminded her of him. And then the hidden backbones for these women. And then we move on to implications, practical and theoretical contributions. So theoretical contribution, the theoretical advances are the frameworks that we were talking about. And how does my study, or how does this story, it really extends feminist economics in different ways. It really reframes grit because for Duckworth, she says grit is very internalized. And the story with these women, it's really about the collectiveness. It's about everybody around them. It's about their own grit, their own perseverance, but it's also about family, right? So it's not just a singular trait. And then it also advances in intersectionality and develops this concept model that we talked about. And then we move on to what practical applications can we use. And it's really a sense of like making sure these women belong. And then there's the Jedi. It's not the Star Wars Jedi, okay, y'all? It's Jedi, which means justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then future research. What future research can we do from the findings here? We can do quantitative validation. So this is a qualitative study, right? We can do cross-regional comparison between different states, different communities, different countries, different cultures. And we can do a very longitudinal study, right? Just to see where these women are years down the road. And then we move on to recommendations for practice and policy. One of the recommendations is we redesign the messaging to reflect the diverse founders. So when we say entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs, and these women don't recognize that term, right, Dr. Byers? Messaging is very important. When we say small business owners or founders, it really changes. You know, I had a conversation 30 years ago, whoever wanted to be a businessman or a business leader, that was something that they could be proud of. Nowadays, oh my God, no, don't call me that. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a founder, right? So even with the generational gap, it's changing. But we have to make sure we send the right message. And then we expand the access to early funding. And we're talking about micro grants. We're talking about non-loans that don't need to be paid back, right? We're talking about things that really can support these women where they need to, because the cost is so staggering. It's so high. And these little grants that they have, you know, the SBA just came out with the new Made in America grant. And I was excited. I thought Gloria could use it. When I looked into it, it's not for her. It's not anything to do with the soft goods industry. Shoes, right? Socks, hats, nothing, right? It's all about hard goods. So, yeah. And as Gloria said, you need clothes. It's important, right? And then the next one is design programs and policies that really align, right? So that's just really do things that really work for these women and just meet them where they are. And then the last thing, which is support action-oriented legal and operational help, which is, you know, patents and trademarks are incredibly expensive. They can't afford that. So a micro grant that gives you $5,000 doesn't even cover a $10,000 patent. So if you don't have a patent, right, you're not protected, right? Your intellectual property is at risk. So these women, these people that are marginalized, they don't have that opportunity. So for me, it's you want to make sure, you know, here at the university or elsewhere, you give support that's really tangible. You just don't give them more stuff on the to-do list and say, this is what you should do. It's really about taking action and supporting them. That's my recommendation. And last but not least, we have the study limitation. The reason is I struggle to find Latino representation, so there's a gap out there. I've asked around, I reached out, and either they were with male founders or they were with fellow white women. So but constantly it was a struggle for me just to find a singular Latino or just all Latino women. So that probably could be my positionality and where I'm from, right? My community is more Asian, so I guess maybe that could be the challenge also, but I did try. The time barrier to growth cases, so I did reach out to quite a few women who were very successful, high growth, but in the span of time that we have for this study, it was impossible, right? From the time of the protocol to the time we finished, it was probably 4 or 5 months, I think they were given. These women wouldn't be available for 6 or 7 months, right? So that was a struggle there. And then there's a small sample size, 5 women, right? It's really not generalizable, and it really doesn't prove external validity, right? Because there's only 5 of them. So we're almost at the end. So if you could be any male character in the story, why not be the one who breaks down barriers? And then my call to action. What are we willing to change so that she can rise? Our next future generation.